This episode of the Totally Rad Show is brought to you by Audible. Today on TRS, we check out the PS3 exclusive first-person shooter, Resistance 3.
Episode, we will be talking about Insomniac's Resistance 3, which is one of the premier PS3 exclusive games of the fall.
Bam.
It is, of course, the third game in the franchise, first-person shooter franchise, that is about an alien invasion taking place, but not modern times, taking place right around the World War II. Well, no, it's actually later than that, isn't it? 50s era. And it has a different main character than the first two games. Nathan Hale, spoiler for Resistance 2, plug your ears if you don't want to know. At the end of Resistance 2, Joseph Capelli shoots Nathan Hale in the head, killing him. And so Resistance 3 begins, you play Joseph Capelli instead of Nathan Hale. And it's the fallout of what has happened. He's been living, it's many months later. He's been
4 years, so.
Oh, 4 years later, exactly. And he's now married, and there's we sort of had a lull period, but we're still being invaded by the awful aliens. And I think the game has a much more somber tone and a much more emphasis on story than the first game. Dan, I really did not like Resistance 2, but I can't remember how you felt about it.
I loved Resistance 2, and I remember specifically citing the level design was, and it's gotten even better in Resistance 3. I'm loving Resistance 3. Loving Resistance 3. I love that every level is its own, has a mind of its own, and I feel like it's so direct. It's such a directed experience. Mm-hmm. Like I'm on the boat, and this stuff's happening, and it's a roller coaster ride, just like the Call of Duties. And I love playing games like this where it's not just wandering around corridors shooting things that pop out. It's not a pop-up shooting gallery. I'm having almost this like. I'm an actor in a movie, and the director is telling me what is happening. That's not a great description. That's not what I wanted to say. But whatever. I've just said the same thing so many times about other great games. But I also, what I love about this first-person shooter is the weapons. So many unique weapons. It's kind of like Ratchet and Clank as first-person shooter. They've all tried to go there, and we do have some of the same weaponry. But I'm digging it even more now for Resistance 3. I love tagging an enemy and
bullseye,
and then shoot, and then all my bullets get traced to that person. I just love that I get to decide strategically what's the best weapon for the job, and all of them are overpowered. All of them are super cool. I'm loving Resistance 3.
Alex?
Wow. So I didn't really like 1 or 2.
Right.
And for I always get Resistance and Killzone mixed up because I was like, where are all the Red Eye guys in Killzone 3?
Such a Sony hater.
I know. So when we started the game, Jeff and I hopped in and did some of the 2-player co-op. I'm going along and playing, and I was like, this is how these games are win games for me. First off, the game is a great game. I think this is, bar none, the best first-person shooter I've played on the PS3, period.
And gorgeous, right? I didn't say that.
Gorgeous. I love the story. The weapon, Dan talked on the weapons. They all seem overpowered. Some of them are too much fun to they shouldn't even exist in a video game. Throwing the little, suck in all the bad guys turret that just sits there and sucks bad guys in. So satisfying.
Alternate fire. We didn't mention, the big thing about this game is that all the weapons have alternate fires.
But not only that, all the weapons get even more badass as you use them. The shotgun gets also does fire damage. It's just it just gets to a point where it's too much fun. And that's the one thing that I really love about the game is that it's just a joy to play. Sometimes we get those games that are it's a great story. The playing part of the game isn't why you buy the game. It's the story. It's the scope. It's the blah. But this game seems to have everything ticked off at 11. The gameplay is super fun. The weapons are amazingly fun. The scope is gigantic. The story moments, the action set pieces, it's got everything that you would need. Sound design, music is great, the graphics are unbelievable. So it's one of those things where this game is just firing on all cylinders, and it was super fun.
Yeah, you know, I was really down on Resistance 2. I think it might have been my biggest disappointment of that year. And this is, I think, a huge return to form. I think it's the best Resistance game of the series, and it fixes the biggest problem of Resistance 2 for me. You were talking about the creativity using the weapons. Well, of course, in Resistance 2, that was stolen away from us because we were only allowed to carry 2 weapons at a time, and you walk into a new area, and the weapon that's right for that situation was lying there, and you had to pick it up because you couldn't hold more. They've now allowed you to have all the weapons at your disposal, which gives you choice. It allows you to make decisions on how you want to approach the situation and what weapons you like, and level up the weapons that you're excited about, which is how this series should have always been. A series that's about having fun with really inventive, creative, different kinds of weapons should always allow you to have them all at all times. It also does a really bold thing in the modern era of shooters in that it eschews the customary life comes back if you wait around long enough, which of course Resistance 2 had.
I love that. I'm glad you brought that up because that's always been something I've talked about in games is like, hey, searching out, knowing you're almost dead and desperately trying to find health potions is a fun mechanic.
Yeah, I just don't understand why the guy can carry all the weapons in the world, but he doesn't want to pick up one of those things and hold on to it for later if he's already at full health. I would love to have had a couple of those.
Source code.
Yeah, right. I think the you know, we were all really excited about Homefront because it felt like you know, the storytelling of that being oppressed and living in that sort of post-invasion. I mean, of course, that wasn't an alien invasion, but it really did a good job of putting you in that place. And while that game was a little too short to be a complete home run, I feel like Resistance 3 accomplishes that same feeling. I feel like I'm in a real place with real people. It does a really great job of putting me in the situation of living in that resistance, having actual, you know, putting me through where the camp is and how that lifestyle works, and you know, I'm walking around and seeing people, you know, a woman reading to children and, you know, a guy like working on stuff. It makes me feel like it's a lived-in environment, and it's interesting because it does storytelling in 3 very different ways. It does the sort of Half-Life first-person talk to people in real time cutscenes. It does the fully rendered cutscene, and it does a sort of animated, hand-drawn comic book version cutscene. And I think all of them, it really grounds the story. In contrast to the earlier Resistance games, it really grounds the story in. Am I keeping you up?
No.
It really.
In fact, you're putting me to sleep. No.
Awesome. It really grounds the story in a feeling of personal consequences. You know, I feel like the first Resistance game really was just a World War II shooter with aliens, and the second game was this convoluted, strange sci-fi story. And this one really grounds it in. You know, he has a family. There's real moment to moment. Yeah, it almost felt like Uncharted in a lot of ways. I really do think this game is a triumph, and I hope it redeems the series.
The one thing we didn't really do, and none of us sort of are talking about, this, all we're talking about is a single player. Right. There is an online multiplayer, Call of Duty style, that stuff, which I didn't really get to touch.
Yeah, I mean, Resistance, of course, is known for its multiplayer as well. We are not huge multiplayer gamers, which is why
I wonder what that kind of weaponry is like in the...
Well, did you play Resistance 2's multiplayer?
I don't think I did.
It's fun. It's very fun. I mean, I know we get a lot of flack for not covering the multiplayer enough, but none of us is really passionate about that.
The only times that I really lock into it are with the Modern Warfare games. I don't know why, but those I'm like leveling up my, you know, Akimbo Uzis.
Well, maybe if we give this one a shot, we can check back in with it a little bit.
Yeah,
but I think from a single player perspective, the campaign is long and varied and interesting.
Yeah.
By the time you get to New York at the end, you've seen so many different kinds of things. There's an amazing train sequence. There's a lot of train sequences in video games, but I can't remember one that's better than this one. It's a really cool game, and they really went back to the drawing board and I think fixed everything that I felt was wrong with Resistance 2.
Big success.
I agree.
Great success.
Awesome. Yeah.
All right, everybody, be sure to stick around for this day in rad history. But first, we want to thank our sponsors. Jeff Cannata.
I get to tell you folks about one of my favorite things in the universe.
Oh, really?
That is audible.com. I love reading, I love books, I love the spoken word. Audible.com is audiobooks. Over 75,000 titles of audiobooks to be completely precise. You can get them onto your iPod, onto your MP3 player, play them back anywhere, anytime. You got books in every single genre you can possibly imagine. You list them off.
Think of a genre, there it is.
There it is.
Science fiction.
I have been enjoying, I have to tell you guys, you know that I've often recommended to the folks a free audiobook because you can get a free audiobook of your choice by going to audiblepodcast.com/totallyrad right this second.
Which is amazing.
And I've recommended a lot of genre books because that's what I enjoy.
Yep.
I got a maybe possibly unusual recommendation. I've been listening to I just had a trip to San Diego last weekend. The girlfriend and I listened to the audiobook of Tina Fey's Bossy Pants.
Interesting.
Written by Tina Fey, read by Tina Fey, which is key. Hilarious, very interesting, insightful, talking about her days at SNL, talking about really like her youth and growing up. If you've got a girlfriend, if you hang out with girls, fun book to listen to because she talks about menstruation quite a bit. Very interesting.
So it really opens the doors.
It really
opens the floodgates of conversation.
I'm glad that we could start this conversation. I've been trying to talk to you about it.
Go to
What the hell is happening?
audiblepodcast.com/totallyrad. Go to audiblepodcast.com/totallyrad. Go to audiblepodcast.com.
Perfect.
Get your free audiobook.
Amazing. Well, thank you guys so much for watching. We will see you
Mañana.
Check us out tomorrow for reviews of some new DC #1 comics.
Today is September 13th, and on this day in rad history, in good old 1956, the first hard disk by IBM, it's called the 305, stored 5 megabytes of data.
And in 1956, they stored hard disks in their sleeve shirt thing.
Really? My dad used to put his in the spokes of his bicycle.
That's unfortunately he didn't get very far on his bike.
Apparently that 5 megabyte hard drive or hard disk weighed a ton and needed a forklift to move.
Yeah, not weighed a ton, ha ha ha.
Yeah.
Metaphor.
No,
or not
ton.
metaphor, but literally a metric ton.
Anyway, thank you, Chris Wheeler.
5 megabytes. 5 megabytes. I remember saving up, I think about $400 when I was a kid to buy a 10 megabyte hard drive, and thinking to myself, I'll never fill this up. It's so huge.
I remember my brain breaking when we got to $1 a megabyte.
Yeah.
I was like, woo, they're dropping in price.
Right.
100 megabytes, $100.
And you're like, I'm gonna put so much on my forklift.